My next guest is a best-selling author of fiction for children. His work includes the 100 Cupboards trilogy, the Ashtown Burial series, and most recently, The Outlaws of Time. He was gracious enough to interview me about the third installment of my Will Wilder series in stores this week, Will Wilder 3, The Amulet of Power. It was my great pleasure to hand the floor over to N.D. Wilson. We sat together here recently in the D.C. studio. We brought you a preview of the interview last week, but here's the entire conversation with us. Watch.
Will Wilder.
Yes.
And the Amulet of Power. So this new book focuses on strength.
It does.
Strength as a theme.
Yeah.
And if stories are soul food, as I would say that they are,
yeah.
What are you trying to give your readers? Like, what kind of edification do you want them to take from this adventure?
You know this. You start to tell a story, and this one I started 2 books ago, and then the story reveals itself as you're writing it. At least that's
right.
what happened here. I knew I spent a lot of time figuring out, okay, what's going to be the primary relic, the secondary relic, you know, and the demon in each book. All of that I take a lot of time figuring out. I do a lot of heavy research, as you know, and that's all the boring part. But
fun for us, boring for everybody else.
Boring for everybody else, including you people watching. But the Amulet of Power is the locks of Samson, which even as a kid I always thought, if there's one thing every boy wants, it's super strength, super power, right?
Yeah.
And here I have wispy, poor little Will Wilder, who can't make it onto the middle grade football team at Perilous Falls.
Perilous Falls middle.
He's trying. He wants to be in the football team so badly, and he snatches the amulet. He claims not to want to use it for football, but he really ends up using it to get on the football team. And he likes the adulation, he likes the attention. And we see in Will a shadow of Samson. So it's a way of kind of, because I think, having read your series, I think you'd agree with me. History doesn't repeat itself, but it has the same rhythm. You hear the same rhythm through time. And I've always loved stories where something of the past ripples into the future. And we learn the same lesson slightly turned on its ear. And that's what happens to Will. He learns true strength, where true power comes from, and it's not from the amulet. And I think using
Is it
strength,
from believing in his dreams?
No, it's not from believing in his dreams, because his dream was to be on the football team.
Yeah.
It's about serving something bigger than himself. And I think he ultimately realizes, I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but the family that has sustained him all along, and his friends, and the love they have for each other, end up being the thing that's truly powerful, and more powerful than any amulet. That's what I think he comes to. But the way he gets there is fun and exciting and dangerous and mysterious, and there are lots of subplots, and these other characters just started talking to me as I wrote this. And you know what happens when you get into the head of these characters. They are as real as the people around you. And I live with them every day. You carry them with you every day. And
they're the imaginary friends you talk to.
They are. Did you have an imaginary friend when you were growing up?
Not until I started writing novels.
Oh, you see, I did have an imaginary friend. I won't tell you his name, but I did. I would ring, in the old houses in the 70s, they used to have these little phone jacks, and they had a little dot on them, and it looked like a bell. So I'd press the bell, and my imaginary friend would come out. Well, now I carry my whole binder of imaginary friends, and I write about them all the time. So Will Wilder is top of the heap.
You kind of answered this a little bit, but just to make you jump up and down on it.
Okay.
Or to give you the opportunity to. Yeah. Our culture today kind of goes after strength in boys.
Yeah.
Punishes boys for even wanting to be strong, for trying to be strong. Will Wilder in this story is trying to be strong.
He is.
Pair that with the other theme that every single movie for kids that preaches is believe in yourself.
Right.
Believe in yourself, believe in yourself, believe in yourself. Those 2 things are kind of like the 2 themes discussed in this book.
They are, but the end is very different. The end is very, and I would say, you know, again, I
don't ruin it for me.
I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to give out any spoilers, but I do want to. I've always loved stories that are true to the character, and I try to be true to these characters as I'm writing. And I really don't preordain how these things are going to end. I know my setup. I know generally who the opposition is, who the demon he's going to confront. But then things start to unravel. The end of the books I don't plot out. I plot out everything else.
Yeah.
So
that's as it should be. It's because you want the dominoes to fall.
Right.
So you set up all the dominoes, and then
you don't want to make the audience think you're forcing something.
Act 3 has to be a natural extension.
Yeah. So here, and look, it takes you a little time to work out Act 3 because you want the character to go one way and he wants to go there. So it ends up being a piece about strength and power, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's about what it's serving. Are you serving yourself, or are you serving the people around you and something larger than yourself?
Right. That's
what Will's ultimately confronted with. It's not about the power.
Right.
The power is to serve an end. That's what he learns. And ultimately, that's what Samson learned.
Absolutely.
In the original story.
Absolutely.
So there are shades of that. And I like weaving in historical reality, historical places and objects. I think it opens kids' minds up to our culture, our Western heritage. In this case, we've got the helmet of Joan of Arc. You've got the locks of Samson. Now, I don't think anybody claims to have the locks of Samson, but maybe it's at my house.
They're somewhere.
I'm sure they're somewhere. Somebody clipped them and took them. And there are many other belts from a cincture from a saint, the relics of the wise men. All these things creep in. You can actually find most of those relics and objects in museums or churches or libraries around the world. And I love that idea that you're taking something real and taking something imaginary and you blow it up and make people look at it in a new way. Because then these things don't become cold relics of the past, but things that drive us into the future with lessons that we can learn and have to learn from them.
In book 3, you've definitely landed more in the superhero genre.
Yeah.
Where the first 2 books, the relics feel, the staff of Moses.
Yeah.
They're a little more external.
Right.
It's a thing. It's the tesseract, right?
Right.
It's the thing you found that's outside of you that has power. But in this case, Will experiences the transformation into a Samson-like character.
Yeah.
Samson was the origin, inspirationally, of most of the superheroes that we have now. Most people don't know that, but the Book of Judges and Samson gave those young Jewish boys in Brooklyn the inspiration to come up with these things. Yeah,
that's right.
To come up with these first comic book heroes. How aware of that were you? How conscious were you of the superhero themes?
I didn't feel it until I was halfway through the book. I kind of stumbled into it, but I knew exactly what you're sharing with people, that Samson was the model for Shazam and Superman and all these brawny superheroes that came and saved the day with their strength. And so as I wrote this, I was conscious of, well, what does that mean today for our boys, for our girls, for us as parents? And I don't want to ruin it, but Will Wilder's father also transforms in this book in a different way. Some have rapped me because in the past he was kind of a weak sister, always kind of tamping down, trying to keep Will from doing what he's called to do. But that's just dramatizing, I think, what we do consciously or unconsciously with our kids. We've learned the hard way about certain professions or certain paths in life, and we try to direct them and keep them to a path and keep them on that. This is the safe way for you, son. This is what you should be doing. In some ways, we're all Dan Wilder, that part of him. Well, now you get to see the fully evolved Dan Wilder in the raw in this book.
Papa Bear.
Papa Bear. He returns to, I think, who he was, and his son and his family helped get him there.
He lives up to his last name.
Yeah, he does. They all do. Yeah. You know where Wilder comes from? I didn't know this.
I don't.
When I was looking for a name for the characters, a Wilder is actually a profession. It is one who kills or traps wild creatures or animals. And I thought, that's the perfect name for this family.
That works.
It does.
That works fantastically. So for people who haven't read the series at all, there's 3 books now.
There are.
Tell us the origin story of Perilous Falls and Vanille.
Yeah.
This great grandfather, Jacob Wilder.
Yeah.
Give us the origin for this.
What I love about the story, you can come to any of these books. They are self-contained adventures. I think you get a richer experience if you read them through, but you really can drop in on any one of them. And I kind of give you the backstory, as you know, writing a series. You want to give people the backstory so they can enter into the tale and feel they understand everything. Will Wilder is a 12-year-old boy with a supernatural gift. He, on his 12th birthday, begins to see shadows that quickly take shape. And in short order, he realizes he can see demons. No one else can see them. And indeed, we find out his family has been waiting generations for a firstborn Wilder who could see, a seer. Because he discovers, and I'm ruining a little bit book one for you, but not really, his family is part of an underground community that has been battling these dark forces and these demons for centuries. There's flashbacks to his great-grandfather, Jacob Wilder. We find out about his adventures during the war and how they reflect into the present. And many times the relics or the artifacts that Will encounters in the present in Perilous Falls, we discover at the top of each book how Jacob Wilder came in contact with that relic or fought off some horror to get it. He has a museum, Jacob Wilder, that he created in the middle of Perilous Falls, Vanille, which is it's a reliquarium. It's referred to as the museum in town, but it actually contains some of the most precious artifacts of history and of all time. The question is, and I haven't answered this, and I won't for several books, why did he feel he had to collect all these relics here? Why are they here? Why are they so precious? And why is this town of Perilous Falls under such scrutiny and attack all the time? I will answer it, but I can't.
Good. I won't.
So that's the setup.
How far do you see the series going?
Well, there are a few more books in me. Okay. I don't know how many more. Probably 3 more, 4 more. We'll see. We'll see.
Are we going to get to see Will Wilder at 18?
No. I decided not to age him up. And Barbara Marcus, whom you know at Random House, advised me early on, and I think she's right. My boys read Harry Potter and read some of these other books where the character ages up. The problem is the character gets older than they do. So what you find out is, you know, and this is not, I didn't do it for this reason, but there is a marketing dimension here. You want your audience to embrace the book at their age and be able to go through the series. If you age him up, he moves past their experience and their understanding, and it gets too old for them. So though they can encounter it later, they can't enjoy it now. Yeah. So if I want to go to YA or adult books, I'll write an adult book or a YA book. So right now, I'm going to leave him.
Which hopefully you will
at his age. Yeah, in time. I have a couple of series rattling around in my head, but
perfect.
I got to finish Will first.
I think you made the right choice. I did age characters up and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it only made sense as the books released. Because the books release a year apart.
Right.
You know,
so they aged up.
Apart. So
but they're in the same area.
Generally, yeah. But the readers age with them. But then you realize the lifetime of a series is much, much, much longer,
right.
Decades longer. And a 12-year-old comes to Will Wilder now,
right.
reads book 1, reads book 2,
right.
reads book 3, and he's their age.
He's in the pocket. And look, I've been amazed by this series because, as you know, there's a thrill ride in the foreground for kids, and that is clearly written for a younger audience. In the background, and the music is adult. And so I love having older readers, college kids. I have grandparents and aunts and uncles and parents. I love that you have, not unlike the book, with Will Wilder and his Aunt Lucille, who's in her 60s, who's kind of his sidekick, the keeper of the flame, you know, the kick-butt great aunt everybody wanted in their life.
Great Aunt Lucille.
Great Aunt Lucille. Gotta have a great Aunt Lucille. What it's done is brought generations together, not unlike Will and Aunt Lucille, where and I don't think there's anything more beautiful than having the generations connecting around a piece of literature and imaginatively exploring that world and then their own world together. There's nothing like it. It creates bonds, it creates intimacy, ties of family that you can't get back. So to have Will, and something I wrote to be a part of that, you with 100 cupboards, the power of that, I think, is a gift. And it's a gift to me, it's a gift to you, and to
fantastic.
Yeah.
So the books are very action dense.
They are.
They're very action dense, lots happening on every page.
Yes.
The video game generation will not be bored.
Yeah, well, that's why
but they will be sparked to bigger imagination and a different kind of mental health, hopefully, than just pushing buttons.
Yeah.
But as far as this construction goes, you say there's more books coming.
Yeah.
How far apart were these books? So the first one released when?
First one released in 2016.
16,
I think.
So you've kept a pretty good pace.
Yeah, but there was a 2-year lap in between. A 2-year lag between book 2 and book 3, and that was because I was covering the Trump administration, and I had Perilous Falls at every moment around me.
You were living in Perilous Falls.
I was living in Perilous Falls.
So you expect us to see more installments over the next couple of years?
They're coming in the next few years. Yeah, it'll take time.
Tell us about your writing habits. When do you write? Night owl, early mornings?
I'm a night guy. I hate mornings. I write at night. Now, a lot of writers write in the morning when they're fresh. I write at night. I've always written at night and on weekends. I find, and William Peter Blatty, my friend who wrote The Exorcist, used to say he would write, and I would text him or email him. He'd be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. He worked from like 10 o'clock to 4 in the morning. And I said, how can you write that late? And he said, well, we're closest to our dream cycle when we're writing then. And for him, that worked. And I do feel I get my greatest ideas and inspiration when I'm writing at those hours in the middle of the night, because the world is quiet. There's nothing to distract you. TV is really bad at that hour.
Trump's not tweeting.
Trump's not tweeting. the kids are sleeping. Rebecca's in bed. And I have the world to myself. And you can kind of carve out your space, and I can go to Perilous Falls. So for me, that's always worked. I like that quiet time. But I know that's not always for everybody. They can't do that.
2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting up, writing in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Do you make yourself laugh? Do you sit there in the dark by yourself, cracking yourself up?
Yeah. I laugh and cry alone, doing all the voices.
The dark.
Doing all the voices. When I edit, I do the voices, and if you've heard the audiobooks, you know the Sybil routine is I do like 32 voices on the audiobooks. Well, when I'm editing, I'll sometimes go to a coffee house that I frequent. And when I was here in Virginia, I'd sit in the corner and I'd go through it, and I'm doing the voices as I go through it. And a woman kept walking through around 3 o'clock every afternoon at this particular coffee shop. And she's looking over. You can feel when people are watching, but I ignored her. I'm editing, doing my thing, Aunt Lucille, and come over this way, and doing the whole routine. She came in every day. About 3 weeks later, she walks over to me, slides her business card next to my computer, and I look down. She's the head of psychiatry for a very famous hospital, and she said, if you need some help, I'm really here for you. And so I said, no, I get paid for doing these voices. So
it's not crazy if you're making money doing it.
It looks crazy to the outside world, but it's really not. It's called fully immersing yourself in your work.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who laughs alone in the dark in the middle of the night. And
it's a strange profession. I can hear your
voices. I can definitely hear your voices when I read.
It's a strange profession.
I really do believe the best stories are written to the ear.
Yep.
And they can be read aloud as a family, and that's definitely, obviously, a priority to you in your prose.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me at all that you edit aloud.
Wait, I have to hear it. I have to hear it. I mean, part of it comes from TV, and being on radio and TV, you do write for the ear to communicate, and I think it's easier to read that way. There's a musicality. You know this. You write so beautifully. There's a musicality to well-written books, and I don't know if mine is one of them, but I strain for that. I struggle for it because I think you don't want to make it difficult, particularly for young readers. And we have so many boys that are not reading. I mean, people don't read. We've got 21 million Americans who can't read, 45 million Americans who are functionally illiterate. That is a major crisis.
It really is.
And our boys are particularly slipping in proficiency level at 4th grade. This is an urgent. This is why I really started this. I mean, first telling stories to my own children. That was going to be my next question.
So, yeah.
Well, how did I get into this? Well, part of it was telling stories to my own children, and I came up with Will Wilder. His name was just Will. He wasn't Will yet. He was Kerman Durman was his original name.
He wasn't yet Wild.
He wasn't Wild. He was Kerman Durman because it rhymed and it was funny. Aunt Lucille was always there. Bartimaeus was there, and the mom and dad, Dan and Deborah. Those characters were there, and I would tell slapstick, silly stories about places I'd been on assignment when I'd come home and the kids were taking their bath or getting ready for bed. And I'd weave in real-world things I'd seen and these wacky characters. And I did it just to entertain the kids and get them to bed. The characters I loved, and they were rattling around in my head, but I didn't know how to make a series out of them. And I was in Dublin doing a series for PBS, and we were at the Christ Church Cathedral. And while we were there, the 800-year-old heart of St. Lawrence O'Toole, the 800-year-old heart in a wooden heart-shaped reliquary, was stolen off the wall of the Christ Church Cathedral while we were there. So when we walk in, we've got cameras everywhere, but they've cordoned off the building. The little cop cars, the little buggies are out, the smart cars are everywhere. And they said there'd been a robbery overnight. Someone took a ladder, got wire cutters, cut the chain that connected the relic to the ceiling, and took it out of the cage. Stole the heart of St. Lawrence O'Toole. And I remember asking myself, who would steal a relic? Why would anybody take an 800-year-old heart of this saint of Dublin? And I had my storyline.
Suddenly it was there.
That was it. And I said, well, wait a minute. Well, what if Will Wilder, what if an impetuous 12-year-old kid came in contact with these relics and decided to pinch one for his own use or for someone else's? And what might be the consequences? So that really was the origin. That was the spine I needed. That kicked off book one, and I plotted them all out. They're all plotted out, Nate. I don't. Yeah. I have book
including
one,
4 and 5.
4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 plotted out. I might be able to smash 2 of them together and give you a double whammy of relics. But there's 7 books in my mind. Whether I'll write all 7, I don't know. But it'll go on.
It'll happen. You're young yet.
Oh, please. Feeling less young.
How long does it take you? How long does one volume take you to finish a draft?
It takes me a good year because of everything else I'm doing. Probably 7 months. 7 months. About 7 months. But a year to get it all together and polish off the rough edges. Oh, good story. Last year, 2018, they recovered Lawrence O'Toole's heart in a park in Dublin. They found it. So in some ways, the story came.
Any motivations ever revealed?
No, they just found it. They found it wrapped up.
Wire cutters.
Somebody found it. Yeah, I guess somebody went in and they must have thought there was money there or something, jewels, and it was a desiccated, old, shriveled up heart. So I guess they figured, dump it in the park. But so they found his heart. So I thought, in some ways, when you write a book, you put your heart into a book, you send it out into the world, and Lawrence.
And then they find it desiccated in a park.
They find it desiccated in a park, and they throw it back at you. So I got it back.
Cammy, the character of Cammy, she's such a great character.
Cammy Merriweather.
And she's such an important character.
Yeah.
And she's that girl who's not impressed with the guy who's very impressive.
Right.
So that protagonist who's very impressive to readers has a friend who's really likes him, but is like, he's got all these weaknesses.
Yeah.
She has a bigger role in this 3rd book.
She does. Cammy Merriweather, and part of that was conscious because I have so many girl readers, and I wanted them to feel they're part of the adventure too. And they love Will. They go, the thing about Will is, the girls, love him, and the boys want to be him. So there's a nice, balance there.
It works.
But Cammy and Aunt Lucille have they sort of come to the fore in this book. Cammy is that, kind of headstrong, smart, sees through everything going on, best friend we all had or wish we had.
Right.
And I had friends in grammar school, in high school like this, who were just those formative girls who would say, what are you doing?
Slow your roll.
Slow your roll, man. Wait a minute. You don't realize what's happening here? And Cammy is that voice of reason, but I do like in this adventure, she jumps in and kind of utilizes one of these relics as well, and has her own role in the drama that I didn't plan at all. That just kind of happened as I was writing.
So accentuating her character in book 3 was in part for your readers, but also she just did what she does in the story, which is she kind of grabs the wheel.
She took over.
She grabs the wheel and she does a little steering.
She took over. Well, Cammy took over. She's a fun character.
She's great.
Cammy's fun. She's kind of wry.
She's way more hard-bitten.
Right.
But not in a bad way.
No,
she's just very perceptive, pushes your bruise.
Yeah,
I see exactly what you're doing with your ego.
And she's got her brother at home,
right.
who, he's a special needs kid. She helps him. She's not, she's a helper. Cammy wants to help people.
Right.
And here she also, you realize the kind of heroine side of her, that she's called to her own battle here, and she's not afraid to mix it up and get her hands dirty, and to call Will out when he's in the wrong.
There's a theme of seductive entertainment in book 3 as well.
Oh, yes.
The theme that comes through with the DJ Cassius.
Yeah.
And the seductive music, the seductive music that takes over and sweeps people literally off their feet.
Right.
What are you getting at, if anything, there? Is there something thematically you'd like to unpack there a little bit for us?
In this story, you have a very charismatic DJ that comes to town with his own groove and mixes, and everybody in town is captivated by him. And his music has a particular effect on people that I won't ruin. But there is something, I think, about the loneliness of our age that I believe finds its way through delivery of media. And when I walk in most cities, except my beloved hometown of New Orleans, where we all jam and party together and dance to the same beat, you go to most places and everybody's got their buds in their ears. They're on their own little screen in their own little world, and they might be laughing and engaged, but it's just them and the screen, or them in their own little groove. And that's kind of what happens in Perilous Falls in this book. You see the individual, the crushing loneliness of technology and the effect it has on people. And I've dramatized that and made it move for my storyline to work, but there is something in there. There's a little bit of a social observation, I guess.
It's very fantastical, but it also feels very close to home.
Yeah.
As far as what we experience now, I've experienced the same thing you have. You get into a crowd.
Yeah.
You're all alone together.
Right.
Everybody's got buds in.
Like that old song,
but they're all together. Yeah, they're all alone, but they're all in a crowd.
Yeah.
But no longer interacting.
There's no interaction. There's no connection.
Yeah.
And what I love about this little town of Perilous Falls is it ends up being, because I think we all live in Perilous Falls. We're all right on the edge. The whole world, the whole country's right there.
You can see the demons.
You can see the demons. The difference is
you're a seer.
Will can see the demons. I can't even. But Will can definitely see them, but nobody else can. And there's something there as well that I think is the reason the series has caught on. I do think people perceive evil around them that they can't put their finger on, but they know it's there.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And imagine if you could see, I wouldn't want that gift. Will's gift is not one I'd want. And in the first book, even into the second book, he's kind of terrorized by what he can see.
Right.
Because I tried to balance that out because I didn't want to terrify my readers. But that would be a horrifying gift, I think, to be able to see the unseen around you in a way that, and the demonic. I would not want to see that. But
it'd be very terrifying, and I would want to. You can cut this part out, Raymond. But I would very much want to be with Elisha, who could pray and say, "Open his eyes so he can see. There's more with us than there are with them."
Yep.
And suddenly there's fiery horses, etc.
Well, I'll go with the fiery horses.
Yes. Okay. So, George Martin.
George Martin.
You love this. You love this question.
Yeah.
George
I
Martin
ask this
says,
of every author. These are my story-oriented questions.
Yes.
Yep.
George Martin says there are two kinds of writers.
Okay.
We have architects.
Yes.
We have gardeners.
Okay.
Which are you?
I'm a combination of both. I'm more an architect.
That's a cheat.
I know. I'm more of an architect. I plot everything out. I've plotted all these books out, even the characters. But Nate, I think it's something you do earlier when you're unsure, you're just jumping in. You know this, because do you plot out? You don't do much plotting.
I do a very small 5-beat outline for a novel.
Aha.
And it's beginning, middle, end, middle of the beginning, middle of the end.
Right.
And then I do the same thing for every chapter as I go.
Uh-huh.
And comparing, making sure I'm on track. So by the time I'm done, I'll have 26 pages of outlines.
Right.
I just don't do it in
You don't
advance.
start it at the beginning.
Right.
You see, I will plot it out at the beginning, but then as I get into it, like you start moving and shifting and things change and the characters want to go here or the story has gone there, and you let it go within reason. I mean, you can't write, War and Peace when you started with Jeeves and, hello
right
Jeeves.
Ho, Jeeves.
Yeah, right ho, Jeeves, and I'm, on Dr. Zhivago. Don't want to go there. But so within reason, but mostly I'm an architect. But you garden as you go. You plant the seeds and you let the flowers and plants bloom as you reach them. I think you have to. The audience can feel when you're faking them out or you're forcing an ending or you're forcing something. It feels artificial to them. As a reader, I know when a writer's doing it. You can feel it. You can see it on the screen when a writer's ham-fisted. So I try to avoid that and let the surprises come when they actually hit me, which is usually during the writing process. Is
Will Wilder the character to whom you relate the most?
He's one of the characters. They're all me. I think you know this. But there's a piece of us in all these characters. You can't write. You're writing through you, so there's a piece of them in you. There's a big piece of Will in me. His impetuousness. Will always thinks, you know, he goes on these little crusades. He sees something, he's, I've got to right this wrong. And he kind of gallops down that path earnestly. There's a piece of me that's that. He's also a little bit of a rule breaker around the edge. And he has a good time. He enjoys his friends. So all of that is the family. The whole family dynamic is something that I didn't realize that, like Aunt Lucille, I had a great-grandmother who grew up with us. He lived in the house with us. And Nettie, Mama Nettie. And she was kind of my sidekick. And I didn't realize till I was probably finished with that book when I read it.
That's where that came from.
Did I trigger? Yeah. Oh, that's where Aunt Lucille came from.
Right.
But so, and though my grandmother was nothing like Aunt Lucille, my great-grandmother, I mean, my great-grandmother was like at the Sands Hotel and, you know, hanging out with Nat King Cole and the Rat Pack. But there was an adventurous element of her, a childlike quality of her, and the way that Aunt Lucille kind of bolsters Will and tries to guide him. That relationship I could understand, but the character is very different. And that's what we do, I think, as writers. You take, just like an actor, you take the relationship, you take the understanding from your life, and then you dress it up in your imagination and make something new of it. And then it becomes everybody's aunt. It becomes everybody's mother.
Yeah.
And
universal Aunt Lucille.
Yeah, and but that I see those little veins that run back to me in the characters, but they're all a piece of me. Every one of them has something. Even the bad guys. I mean, even Ava Lynch, the mayor of Perilous Falls, on my nastiest day, when you want to use every.
She feels very real.
She's a vengeful, tough character. Well,
almost as if you've known people like that.
I have known people like that, and you know, and look, when you run around in a town like this and you see how politicians manipulate the media, the levers of power and their position to force outcomes and to manipulate public opinion, that's who Ava Lynch is.
That's who she is.
Yeah.
Even Perilous Falls.
Even Perilous Falls.
Has itself a politician.
Or two.
Politician.
Or two.
You have interviewed many, many authors at this point.
I have.
Do you have any sense of how many?
Oh, gosh.
On Story-Ented in particular.
Story-Ented, probably about 50, 60 authors, maybe.
50. And you asked them all very similar questions.
I do.
At the end, you hit the same thing. I'm going to turn the tables on you.
Oh, thanks.
We're gonna run through this, Raymond.
Okay.
I sat there and answered these questions.
I know. I humiliated you. Now it's my turn.
I thought I did quite well. I wasn't humiliated.
You did very well, but I won't do so well.
So, turning the table.
All right.
On you. What is your favorite children's book?
My favorite children's book, I think, is Treasure Island.
It's fantastic.
I love Treasure Island.
I love that you think of it as a children's book.
Well,
because now it's
an adult book. It's an adult book, actually. But I love that. The thing I most treasure about Treasure Island is I read it as a child and I thought it was a great pirate adventure. I read it as an adult to my children and saw something totally different. And that's what I love about great, not only children's literature, but great literature, period. But these stories have a deeper root. I mean, the 100 Cupboard series, the Narnia series, when you experience something as a young person and then life changes you and you look at it anew, it's like when you meet someone from your past. You see them in a different light. You know, like an adult you met as a child and then you meet them in adulthood. They change before your eyes. Children's literature, I think, has that same depth to it. And Treasure Island is a treasure trove. It's so beautifully written. It's such a great, fun tale. It's fun to read. It's what children's literature should be, and adult literature. Adventuresome, life-changing, and the scales fall for little Jim. I just love it. I love it, and I love
Long John Silver, Jim Hawkins, all
every moment, every character, and every moment, and every turn is just brilliant.
It's a great book to rob too, as an author.
Yes,
I've stolen many things.
Oh, you've stolen a few.
Many things from Treasure Island. Big Ben Sterling is a character in one of my stories.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know where I got that idea. Long John Silver. Where could this be coming from?
That?
How about your least favorite?
You know, I ripped him off too. Just to tell you, now that I'm thinking
True Confessions.
In the first Will Wilder book, there is a riverboat captain that has shades of Long John Silver.
Shades of Long John.
Shades of Long John Silver. He's not Long John Silver, but definitely not. But he has the charm of Long John Silver is there.
And as professional authors, we both know if you're going to rip somebody off, make sure they're dead.
Make sure they're dead and rip off the best.
Yes, rip off the best.
We're not going to rip off 40 Shades of Grey. Or
49.
Whatever.
49 Shades of Awful.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Least favorite book.
My least favorite book.
Is that it? 49 Shades of Awful?
That would be it, I think. My least favorite book, that's hard because there's so many. I'm going to tell you something horrible, and I know I'm going to get letters about this. I have never been able to, and he's a child of the South, and it's the only Southern author I cannot get through. William Faulkner. I can't get through Faulkner. James Joyce is the other. I cannot read.
I struggle with both of those.
I read them. I want to love William Faulkner. I love
you're supposed to.
Well, his New Orleans sketches I love, but the books, I can't get through them. So those would be my least favorite. And please, I love Faulkner, but I can't read his books.
I love him in principle.
I love him in principle. I do. I love the theory of him, the spirit of him. He lived in New Orleans. I have to love him.
The theory of Faulkner. So a book in particular that helped guide you through your life, that helped furnish you with your path in life. Is there a particular title that comes to mind?
Is there a title that comes to mind? One that I think that I guess I always kind of look back to, I was a big mystery fan when I was a kid. Sherlock Holmes. I always go back to Sherlock Holmes. I've never left. Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie were my two favorite writers. I still read them occasionally.
How did you feel about Raymond Chandler?
I liked Raymond Chandler.
Okay.
Very different.
But you like the more intellectual.
I like the broad character, the dramatic character. Hercule Poirot, Jane Marple, Sherlock Holmes. They had dramatic flair that I always liked.
You like the deerstalker and the pipe.
It's all about, it's the pipe and the opium den and the
violin.
The violin, the
melodrama.
Whole shooting anyone eccentric enough to shoot off a gun at home, you gotta love this guy. So, but I'll tell you what he furnished me with. There was an order to Sherlock Holmes, and what's that great line he had about the attic of the mind, and you have to keep the mind swept and keep the attic in order. Those little things, there are a lot of lessons in
There's a lot of wisdom.
Conan Doyle. Yeah. Great wisdom. I mean, he was also
some weirdness.
Cracked in an opioid addict, but aside from that, he was a great pal.
But his character work was amazing.
He was great to have around. John Watson would have probably been a better pick for a friend, but Sherlock has always been rattling around.
If you could choose one mentor, writing mentor, from the past or the present, who would it be? Would it be Conan Doyle?
No, it would be Graham Greene.
Okay.
Who's my favorite author.
Really?
I love Graham Greene. Another, kind of
also
conflicted soul.
Yes.
Conflicted soul. But his writing is, it's spare, it's beautiful. He saw through, I think, to the heart of the matter, to steal his title. I just love his books. I love his view of the world. But there was a darkness there that is a little troubling. But a brilliant writer. And he was a journalist who was also a novelist. So I'd like to maybe spend an afternoon with he and Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens would be probably at the top of my list, before Graham Greene even. Yeah, Mark Twain.
I would just love to watch Mark Twain.
Yeah, just watch him rock in the chair and smoke the cigar. Why not?
Fantastic. So to modify one of your story-ended questions a little bit, if you knew you were only going to write one more book, one more, of any genre, any market, what would it be?
A mystery. I'd write a murder mystery that I've been putting off for a long time.
You answered that very quickly.
I know it's plotted out. I know where it's set. I know my protagonist. I can see it.
We're
I just
more
haven't
alike
had time to
than
write
I realized.
it. Were you a mystery fan?
I've got one called Knock on Bone. It's just sitting on there, just waiting.
It's on the shelf.
It's someday. Someday. So if you knew you were only going to write one more, it wouldn't be book 4, Will Wilder. It would be this.
Well, the outlines to Will Wilder are there. My son could finish those.
You consider those.
This is not done yet.
Your son can play Christopher Tolkien and finish.
That's right. Let him cash out on the estate. No, I would do this murder mystery because it's personal. I love the genre. It's my favorite genre. These are kind of mystery. The latest one is a bit of a mystery. This Will Wilder book.
It really is.
Turns out into a mystery, and who's who and what's what, and Will's not sure. he's not sure of his gift, even. Everything's slipping in this book.
And I know it's a mystery because I'm still like 75 pages from the end, and I don't know what happened.
Oh. Well, I'm not going to tell you.
I'm right there. I'll finish it on the plane.
I'm not telling you. It'll be a surprise. Tell me about your book. The 100 Cupboard series is out everywhere, and my children and I love this series. It's mysterious. It's wonderful. Tell me quickly, because I love the story, the origin story. This story is about a child who encounters cupboards, mysterious cupboards, in an attic.
Yes.
Of a home.
Yes.
How did you come to this?
Well, there's two versions.
Okay.
The truth and
okay.
No, they're both the truth. Two true versions. The way the story happened is late one night, those wee hours with a friend, and my wife was there too. She was in and out of the room. We were just talking in general, and somebody used the phrase 100 little cupboards. That phrase just floated by in the air, and I grabbed onto it and stopped the conversation and said, that sounds like a great title for a book.
Wow.
And I would have just left it there. That was it. Little sidebar, move on. My wife leaned in the room and she said, that sounds like a stupid book.
Oh.
And I said, really? And she said, yeah, 100 places to put your plates? Like,
why do you need cupboards?
What's the point? And I said, no, it's amazing. There's this kid from Boston, and his parents are gone, and he gets sent to live with his aunt and uncle in Kansas, and it's this old farmhouse, and he's sleeping in the attic, and plaster falls off the wall one night and wakes him up, and he chips it off, and there's a little cupboard door, and he keeps chipping, and there's 99 cupboard doors. And she says, fine, okay, it'll be a fun story. And I walked away. I thought I would never write it. I would never write it. The next morning, she woke me up, and she was sitting on the edge of the bed looking at me and said, I need to know what happens next.
Oh.
And why are there only 99? You said it was called 100. Where's the 100th cupboard? You need to start writing. So I started writing that day as a result of an argument with my wife, and then she was on me to do it. So that's one origin story. But the stuff that was in my brain that came out in that story, you referred to, content that's back there.
You find your past as you're writing these books, where the origin will come to you sometimes after you've written it.
Exactly. In this case, it was kind of obvious to me because my house had burned when I was in elementary school.
Oh.
The roof had burned off, and I'd gone to live in my grandparents' house for months.
But the house burned off because of a defective doorbell.
A doorbell. So, and my mother, who was an English teacher, was making me watch a documentary film called The Story of English at the time as an elementary student. I was bored out of my skull. The lights turned off in the kitchen, and I volunteered to go check out what it was. Walked in, heard the crackling flames above the ceiling as the house was going up in fire.
Oh my God.
So I got to have that great moment as a mischievous elementary boy of leaning out of the kitchen saying, Mom, the house is on fire. And I totally played it cool like that. I just
deadpanned it.
It's on fire. She grabbed the phone line was already dead, couldn't call 911. We were just like getting out of the house. But after that, and side note, they'd accepted an offer on the house. They're trying to sell it like the day before, and then it burned. So obviously that all went away. We moved into my grandparents' house. I lived in the attic. And it was this coved, long attic, and I lived up there with my sister, and beside my bed there was this little door in the wall.
Oh my gosh.
And when we pulled that open and crawled back in there were posters from World War II and all this amazing stuff back in there. And my sisters and I would crawl down.
There's the one cupboard.
Inside the walls. And there were places we could worm through and drop onto a ceiling above the attic stairs and slide down, and we could creep around inside the walls of this old house. So when I, on the drop of a hat, had to come up with a plot to win an argument over whether 100 Cupboards would be a fun book,
that gave it.
That stuff came out. Wow. This kid who got put in an attic, he got sent there because of a disaster in his family. He's sent to live with his grandparents, and then doors in the walls. So it's the two kind of converged.
Stories. I love them. Tell me quickly about The Riot and the Dance.
Okay, Riot and the Dance.
This is a fantastic documentary you've done on Earth. Now you've got a second one.
Yeah, we've just finished production on part 2, but Riot and the Dance Earth is now out on streaming, DVD, Blu-ray. It's basically everywhere movies are available to be purchased streaming. And it was a blast to make. Took us a couple of years, but I had always wanted to get out and make a nature documentary. And this is because, like you, I believe we live in a fantasy world. This world is not the world of realism. This is not the world of materialism. There's crazy creatures out there doing crazy things. If you'd never heard of an elephant before, and I made it up for you, you would not believe me. And the same thing goes for hummingbirds and dragonflies and and all of that. So getting out there and finding these birds that must exist in a different time frame or something. They're laying eggs the size of pencil erasers, you know, and flying around as we all watch hummingbirds fly amazingly, all in the Western Hemisphere. Solomon never saw one.
Wow.
Like we get to see these things and others don't. So the Riot and the Dance has been a dream of mine for a long time, to go make nature documentaries that don't treat nature like it's chaos and meaninglessness, just to honestly worship, to go out there in the created world and see these glorious creatures and narratives play out that a much greater author than I am has had a hand in.
It's spectacular.
But I'm not going to let you off the hook.
Okay.
I'm going to have you end with this. Best advice to parents to get their kids to read.
Oh, read everything. Let them read what they want. Let the child lead you to the things they're naturally interested in, and then you can direct them within that genre or those characters to the best.
But get them on the road.
Get them on the road. What interested one child of mine, it was trucks. He just loved trucks. The other one was a mystery fan from very young. So you have to kind of let them go down their own paths. They'll eventually find those great works you want them to read. But I do think we all make a big mistake by exposing kids too early to some of these great masterworks, to Dante and Shakespeare. And it seems it's so foreign at that age. They never go back to it, and that's a great loss. We shouldn't do that. So start with 100 Cupboards and Will Wilder and work your way to Shakespeare and Dante. How's that for
fantastic? That's fantastic.
Product placement.
Great job. Congratulations.
Nate, thank you so much.
Let's get this up.
Will Wilder 3.
Amulet of Power.
Everywhere.
February 19th.
February 19th.
Everywhere, February 19th.
Thank you, Nate.
Read it.
An honor.
I'm going to finish it tonight.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. Great being with you. My thanks to Andy Wilson. Such a great guy. Fun conversation. Will Wilder 3, The Amulet of Power, is available at bookstores everywhere, online, and through EWTN's religious catalog at EWTNRC.com. Now, I will also be at the Reagan Library on the 22nd of February, and the day before, February 21st, I'll be in Bryant, Texas at a gala for life. Go to RaymondArroyo.com. I'll have all the details there. Come out and see me. We'll be announcing more book events in the days ahead.